my darlings. It's me, your girl, Angelina Serafita Tutacosa, and I'm sitting in for my lovely John Michael, who cannot be here tonight, but I have a very special guest you're going to want to hear what they have to say about this important topic. So let me start by saying Happy Mother's Day. Whether that's a full word or a half word, it comes from the bottom of my breastises. So from Paul Wegman, the inimitable Miss P of the Parliament House, to Daytona Beach's Billy Boots, Divine, Windy Grape, to the modern mothers, including RuPaul and Bob the Drag Queen, Sasha Velour, Alexis Flame, Tony Homeperm, Latrice Royale, and Whitney Nicole Dier. They're just some of the folks that I know who over the past 40 years have been mothers to those who are disenfranchised, to those who may have been rejected by their families, rejected by their communities. And so they become and step in as mothers, and not only those who wear the makeup and the hair and the beautiful breastises, but every one of those who stepped up. And so my guest on our show tonight, when we get back, is the incredible Tom Cat. And we're going to have a conversation I hope touches your hearts and touches you really deeply as we show appreciation for both biological mothers and mothers of choice. We'll be back in just a minute. That intro is so live, that is so long in case I have to pee right before the show.
Oh, here I am fixing something over here, and I'm like, wait a minute, is the song over? I thought it was so long. It was so long.
Hello, my darlings, and welcome to Tom Cat, who is our special guest tonight. And it's so good to see you, my darling. I've gotten to see you several times this week already.
I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
So before we start, because this is, and I know there's people that are scratching their head. They've seen me on the show before, but now they're saying, wait, what does this topic have to do with the show? And remember, everyone, this is a show about spirituality, about finding our true nature, finding our rootedness in our wholeness, in who we really are. And so to me, as we celebrate Mother's Day, and those who watch my John Michael's Facebook, you see that every day he's talking about another aspect of the divine feminine within. So this has a very perfect tie-in, especially for those of us in the non-binary community, in the transgender community, in the LGBTQ community, the genderqueer community as a whole. And so before we start, Tom, tell us a little bit about you and what you do and some of the projects you're involved with, because this is someone you should all look up and connect with on Facebook. And you can't do that if you don't ask him a question during the show, because then he's going to answer afterwards, and then you'll have a way to connect.
So, where do I start? Hello, my name is Tom Cat. I use they them pronouns, but I say I use they them pronouns, but I do use all pronouns. Just don't refer to me as sir, please, and thank you. I am a female impersonator. I'm a drag queen. I am a cosplayer. Jack of all trades, master of only a few of them. And I've been performing and doing what I do for the last 10, 11 years. And I've just been. It's funny that we have this conversation about mothers, because in the community, as I was telling Angelina before. As I was telling her, in the community that I'm part of, the cosplay community, I am very well known as a mother figure, as a nurturing figure. And, in connection with magic, medicine, and mysticism, we all sprang from a womb of some type. We all came from a woman. We all came from a womb. And so it really is interesting to speak about wombs in the physical and the metaphysical, because queer people have two births. There's two births for a queer person. There's your natural birth, and then there's your birth as a queer person when you start identifying as anything under the umbrella of queerness. And it's up to people like me, and like Alexis Flame, and like Tony Holmperm, and like Latrice Royale, and Sasha Velour, and even Bianca Del Rio, like the Rue girls that sort of took on the title, I guess you can say, of Den Mother, to sort of help people sort of discover themselves and figure themselves out. And I say that not in a sexual way. I say that in a emotional, connective, spiritual way. One of the best examples I can think of is Becky Essence Hall and Jada Essence Hall, and just seeing their relationship. It's so wonderful to see it, because it's not romantic. It's emotional, and it's a strong emotional connection that you have with somebody that you can turn to for guidance, that you can turn to for advice, that you can turn to for just help in ways that a mother, an actual mother, might not be able to assist you with, or possibly won't listen to or accept you with.
I love that. I had no idea that you were going to go so deep so quick. So I'm delighted.
I'm so sorry.
I am so delighted. I thought, okay, so how do we move this into a little bit deeper conversation? Because I think this is a conversation that has long needed to be happen. I mean, people know my John Michael was diagnosed with AIDS in 1983, and so it's very personal for us. We saw firsthand that when these young boys were getting sick, and getting out of the hospital with PCP pneumonia or Kaposi sarcoma, and they were going home, many times it was their friends that abandoned them after they had already been abandoned by their families, and in some cases told, start getting your affairs in order, because you're not likely to be here for much longer. And it was women who stepped up. It was lesbians who stepped in. It was the drag queens who stepped in and said, oh, no, not on our watch. You're not going to die alone. You're going to live. And were it not for that, John Michael wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. And so I think that they be, in many ways, the drag mothers, and not just drag mothers, as the community matured, and as we started to deal with pandemics, multiple pandemics now, on a more intimate basis, the bear community stepped up. And we were talking about the T-shirt that you have, I think that we try to keep these broadcasts to like 30 minutes and really have like a real takeaway that someone can start their week in a more uplifted kind of mood. So I know that there are people that are triggered. I went personally watched people's mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers abandon them over the Mango Menace for 4 years and beyond, and they're still clutching their pearls over the big lie. So I know what it's like to be triggered when Mother's Day comes around, or Father's Day comes around, or the holidays come around. But I thought it would be a great way to start this week, so that people know that if you don't have anyone in your corner right now, you've got the two of us. This is probably where we would break into a song and dance number.
A good mom is hard to find. You always get the other kind.
True that.
So it's funny you mentioned the shirt that I was talking to you about. Yes, there's a story here. So in the community that I'm a part of, the cosplay community, it's a group of nerds, a group of individuals who go to conventions and they dress up in certain wares, whether you're cosplaying as Batman or any superhero, any villain, and just anything like that pertains to you dressing up as something. It could be drag, it could be furries, just anything. Cosplay is just so limitless to what you can do and what you can dress up as. There's a shirt that a friend of mine literally saw and was like, "Mom, I need to get this for you." And it's a polar bear with a little baby bear next to it, and the baby bear is rainbow colored. And underneath it says in rainbow colors, "Proud Mom." And it's one of those things to me that I really truly am touched by it. And how the question always asks, like, how do you, someone who is very male presenting and very much in this way, how are you a mom? And to be a mom is to basically be someone who is nurturing, caring, kind, understanding, who will not shy away from not sugarcoating things, who will give it to you straight, who will give it to you as honest as possible and not pull punches. And, when you're in a community that's so large and so vast, there's a lot of people that will turn to you and say, "What do I do in this situation?" And it always is fascinating to me because, for a little backstory on me, my coming out was not fun. I did not have a fun coming out. It has taken my parents a very long time to be even slightly supportive of who I am as a person and as a performer. And there's still a long way to go. And my parents are in their 60s. So that's just that gives you a little bit of a timestamp on where I'm at. One of the things that I'm loving, though, is that the younglings, we'll call them, they're honestly having a much easier time than we did. Granted, there are still plenty of states in the United States that are very much that are very homophobic, that are very transphobic, that are very against queerness in any way, shape, or form. And it all dials back to the patriarchy, and it all dials back to misogyny, because femininity is looked at as poor and wrong. And just these ideals, they infect a young person's mind. And it's up to the elder queers, I guess you can say, the elders in the group, to basically take them aside and say, "No, you listen, you need to educate yourself on what being queer is to you. You need to educate yourself on the queer history that you've been denied growing up. And you need to sort of understand where you as a queer individual can see yourself going." And that at its core is what being a mother is, quote unquote. To be a mother is just that, to be nurturing, kind, caring, and understanding.
While you're talking about that, I couldn't help but think, when you're saying that's what it means to be a mother. And by the way, I know that some of our viewers are listening to you talk and saying, "I know that voice somewhere." Something you never knew. She didn't really die, darlings. All she did was she shaved her head and moved to Long Island. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I was thinking, when I was younger, and performing at the Parliament House and Southern Nights and places throughout Central Florida, the characters were younger. It was big production numbers, dance numbers, very different from what we have in South Central Pennsylvania right now, which is the Shonda. But that's a topic for another show. But I stopped doing drag in 15 years ago, and I stopped, and I'm intentionally coming out of character because this is really coming from my heart for those who know me. So I'll go from sounding very New York to very Philadelphia. But I stopped, and until you were talking, Tom, I didn't realize why. I just thought, it's inconvenient when you're as hairy as we are. It's, walking in heels, and I got Parkinson's, and that makes walking in heels even harder. but what it really was I wasn't, we lost of so many of those names I started with. Paul Wegman is gone, and Billy Boots, and um, we lost generations of those mothers in the first wave and the second wave of the AIDS pandemic. And I think that when that happened, I went into a grieving mode, and didn't come out until a few years ago, when I said, there are no more mothers and daddies out there to take care of these kids, and so many of these younger kids are being crucified, especially as those of us who are non-binary started to become more visible. And it wasn't just, truly, when I was younger, the only way to find expression for who I am, and for I only recently learned that it was called being a demi boy or a demi guy is what I am. I just would say I was a half a cup of coffee, half a cup of cream, and the feminine expression came out by doing drag. I didn't do drag because I wanted to have to schlep around. Well, yeah, I did, because I was a theater queen, but but it was the expression. It was the way to do that, and that led to getting fired from a job where we were caught at a pizza place. Me and if she's watching, Lana, what was your last name? Lana Luft. In Orlando, were caught in the restroom tucking before our shift. The store wasn't open yet. Nobody should have walked in, but the manager walked in to make sure the restroom was clean. And there we are, taping our pichadillo, and the rest was history.
As you do.
As you do. And so here we are in 2021, after a brutal first year of this pandemic. And it became harder and harder for Angelina to stay off the screen, off the stage, to not step in and do something. And I see you and so many others out there doing something, whether it's Maud Live, and bringing theater back to some of us, at a time when all the theaters are dark, all the traditional theaters, to doing your talk show with Alex, or your appearances on so many other different shows, that it just really touches me. And it touches me because I think that this is a time when stories matter. Stories are what's going to get us through this. And started no idea why I'm starting to speak broken English. Angelina's channeling.
For the best.
She's channeling her Tia Sophia. But those stories are going to be what gets us through this. And so we're almost at the just past the halfway mark. We're going to take a quick break for a public service announcement from the Charter for Compassion. And when we get back, we'll take any questions you have, and hear some of Tom's final thoughts for surviving not just this pandemic, but surviving living in a world that is this sometimes this divided and disconnected. More on that when we get back.
Hi, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm a guy you might know. That's why I've chosen to speak to you today, because you know my story. Well, some of it anyway. But what if you knew everyone's story? What if everyone on the planet was familiar to everyone else? The Charter for Compassion wants to find out. They're asking you to tell them a piece of your story. One moment of compassion that changed your life. Each story will be inspiring in its own right, but all of them together will reveal a world of compassion happening right now in places all over the world, as diverse as Kentucky all the way to Pakistan and everywhere in between. Imagine it. Thousands of stories told one person at a time. Someone once said, there isn't anyone you couldn't learn to love once you've heard his or her story. Stories make us care. Stories help us understand. Stories breed compassion. And if there's one thing we need right now, in our politics, in our dialogue, in our communities, in our world, it's compassion. Go to charterforcompassion.org and tell your story. And while you're there, affirm the Charter and make a commitment to make the world a more compassionate place. but it's only the first step. Now it's time to practice. It's the only way to a peaceful world. I can't wait to hear your story.
Do you know him and I have the same birthday?
Do you really?
Uh-huh. I only found that out, I want to say, last year.
When is your birthday?
My birthday is July 10th.
Well, it's coming up. And now
slowly.
Now I can more effectively stalk Adrienne Grenier to send her a birthday present. And before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge my beautiful, beautiful Marty Ferrioli, who sent me this gorgeous, absolutely stunning cup that says Tia Angelina, that was made by, and I have got to, they did not ask me to do this, but I think it's worth being up here. It's made by an artisan named Maria Callista. You can find her on Instagram and from there everywhere else. Do her a solid and let her know just how beautiful. Again, this is just gorgeous work, and you can't really see it clearly, but behind me, right over here, she did a cup with the cover of my book, Magic at the Crossroads, that she hand paints these and seals them in epoxy. They're absolutely stunning. Go and check her out. But now back to my darling Tom and our this wonderful conversation on this Mother's Day about the mothers in the world. Are you a Pose fan?
I have watched Pose, yes. The final season has definitely been intense, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I had to tune out. Not because it's not brilliant, not because it's not amazing, and not because we don't want Billy Porter on this show. Hint, hint, Billy Porter. I know you're watching. But because it was really hitting a little close to home at this time of year, and I needed some of that separation. But tonight we don't want to talk. We don't want to. The idea is not to bring anyone down; it's to lift them up. And so, tell us about I think one of the greatest ways to do that is for people to be connected to stuff that you and Summer and everyone are doing with the Maud Live series and Anita Riggs, my girl crush. But tell us about the projects that you're doing, and tell us about how to get in touch with you while I put that up on the screen.
So, while we only have about 7 or 8 minutes left, during all of Trump's reign, it was not great for me. My family still very much supports him. My family still watches Fox News and all that fun stuff. So when the pandemic happened, I was like, I've been given all of these lemons. How do I make applesauce with all of these lemons? And I've been saying that quote for a very long time. When life gives you lemons, make applesauce. And one of the things that I did was I did just that. I was like, what can I do to make myself feel better? And being as Angelina was saying, being a B. Arthur impersonator definitely has sort of lent itself to me over the course of the pandemic, because so many people, as soon as they hear my voice, they're like, "Oh my God, you have such a beautiful speaking voice." I said, "Yeah, I impersonate B. Arthur," and they're like, "Oh my God, I hear it now." And I'm like, "Yep, that's what happens." So for the longest time, I had wanted to bring Maud back into focus for a little bit. Now I have a reasonably okay following on the interweb. I've sort of carved a tiny little corner for myself. And I've always wanted to sort of reintroduce Maud into modern America, because a lot of the conversations that were happening on Maud are now happening today and were happening just a couple of years ago. So it's always fascinating to see how much and how far away certain shows are that are actually still very much talked about in some shape, way, or form. And one of the first episodes I did for Maud Live was Maud's facelift, and I just did one the other night, which was a Mother's Day episode. And again, the conversations that we were having, the conversations that we were having have happened and are still happening today. Like having your significant other stay at your home for the night, and your mother wanting to keep keep your partner in the basement while you stay in your room and not sleep in the same bed together. Like, that's a conversation that has happened for generations, not just during the 70s. And I mean, the last episode that we did for Maud Live was Maud had purchased a house for Carol that was right across the street. Now, back in the 70s, I can understand Carol being like, I want to be my own person. I want to do my own thing. I want to do this. I want to do that. Nowadays, I think if a family member bought you a house, you'd take it and run.
At least sell it afterwards.
At least sell it after you finally move in and whatnot. But yeah, I've been doing that. I have my own talk show called Cat Chat, where I have guests from the drag community, from the cosplay community, from the voiceover community, from the theater community. I have all of these fabulous guests and whatnot, and we just talk about anything. We talk about anything that comes to mind, and some of the conversations are beautiful. Some of the conversations are hilarious, and some of the conversations are relatively serious. So I always enjoy that. The other talk show that I have is Two Bags of Drag with my darling Alex Stompoli, who is a fabulous, fabulous Renaissance actor based in Pennsylvania. And him and I go back many, 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 many years. And we literally had it in our souls and in our hearts to basically say, we have been friends for so long, and every time we have a conversation, it ends in laughter. So why wouldn't we want to have our own talk show where we just shoot the breeze about anything, and it'll be entertaining because it's the two of us, and because
really
we bounce so well off of each other. So I'm very excited about that. That only just started, where I think this week will be episode 4. With Cat Chat, this will be, I think, episode 30.
And Cat Chat is on what nights?
Cat Chat is Tuesdays at 8:30 on Facebook Live. Two Bags of Drag is Thursdays at 8:30 on Facebook Live. And Twitch. I need to figure out how to stream to Twitch with Cat Chat and whatnot. Just so many streaming services. It's absolutely insane. But the reason why I'm doing all of this is to sort of entertain people and to educate people. One of the things that I've noticed about the pandemic is that a lot of people are just not going back to work. They're not going back to the grind, I guess you can say. And instead, they're using their time, talents, and energy to foster their own creative juices and to foster their own creative needs and desires. And I, for one, am all about that. I think you should never take your creativity for granted. Never, ever, ever take your creativity for granted. Do what you want, do what you love, and you will find your way in time. The problem is, not many people have the opportunity to do that. I am very fortunate, and I will say this time and time again. I am a very privileged person in the fact that I was able to sort of invest enough money into my own art where I can see myself making money at a certain point. There are some people that are literally a paycheck away from homelessness. And, it's one of the things that I've been seeing, though, because thank goodness that the unemployment insurance is still going strong until at least September. And I'm thinking it might even go further than that, depending on how things are going.
Right.
Just because unless, not to get political, but unless a reasonable living wage is met, nobody is going to go back to working at $11, $12 an hour. It's not worth it.
No,
I'm sorry. The federal minimum wage is $7.25. Come on now. It needs to be higher than that.
And for the folks that are watching that are saying not to get political, too, there are certain people I adore in this world who said they would never come on my show because they can't be in drag and be political. I don't know how to be in drag and not be political, so I'm going to go there.
Drag is a political statement.
Yes.
Point blank. Period. Drag, creative art. They are all political bits of art.
And just this week, In-N-Out Burger announced that they were raising their minimum wage, I think, to $15, $16 an hour, up to $19 an hour at the top. And so, if a company that's that's a fraction of the size of McDonald's or Chick for homophobia can afford to pay a living wage without losing their business, and their business has actually gone up, and they haven't raised their prices either, then anybody can do that. But I want to thank you. I know we're coming up at the end of the half hour. Yeah. I want to thank you. I want to encourage folks to check you out, to get in, get in touch, listen to some of the shows. I mean, I think what I love and appreciate most about your show, we all love to be entertained. That's nice, but your shows also make you think. I happen to follow you from just watching the Naughty and Nice to your show Two Bags of Drag right afterward, and I was only going to just watch for a few minutes and then go start dinner. Dinner had to wait because the topics that were being covered, even in the midst of stalkers and and all, were rich. They were where the conversation went was wonderful, and I was just fascinated by the fact that in 15 minutes away from me is Alex and the Ren Fair I've been to many times, but that there are really considerate, thinking people in our community. That I usually don't meet.
It's not all Puerto Vallarta. It's not all anti-vax. There are people that will make you think critically. And if I or Alex or Angelina or Naughty or Nice or any of the or even Bob the Drag Queen and Monet Exchange, if these queens and these individuals can make you think critically about what you're doing, then they've done a great job. They've made you think past the bridge of your own nose.
And so they are your mothers. And so I will end today's show by telling all of you, call your mother.
If not, get out the Ouija board.
Yeah. If this message resonated with you and you made you realize the people that step into our lives who are not our biological mothers, and particularly those who step into the lives of our queer community and queer viewers and queer family, our tribe, then yeah, really do. It doesn't have to be on tonight, but when you watch this, reach out to them and say, hey, not for nothing, I just want to say thank you for being in my life, and that's it. That was the whole idea behind tonight's show, was to have another opportunity to hear another beautiful story from another member of our tribe, of my tribe, who I love and respect, and to give you something to think about and to give you something to be grateful for. So, Tom, I thank you so much, my darling, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And you can catch Tom at all of get all of the information for all of Tom's
information from me. Just
at Linktree / Tomcat.
Everywhere. I'm everywhere.
And you can find me usually on a street corner in Philadelphia and in South Philly, or all over the internet. I'm there like a bad rash. And I have to jump from here to a special birthday somebody's celebration. So my Dominic darling, I know you're watching. Happy birthday, darling, Tanti Agori. And for all of our viewers, if you're interested, this show normally is hosted by my John Michael, and is done and brought to you by the Inner Alchemy Mystery School. If you stay around to the end of the program, you will find out how you can get a week's free membership there to poke around behind the look behind the curtain and see what we're doing and what the benefits are. Tom, I love you. It was good to see you, darling. And everybody else, we will see you next week.